Welcome along to South Today's Sport. In our ANZ Championship review, we're looking at the competition so far because the Steer are on a bye, and giving us a hand, former international Natalie Avellino. Good evening, welcome to you.
Thanks, Tom.
First impressions of the new conference system?
Yeah, not a big fan of the conference system. I know they wanted to make changes, something new, but I would have liked to have seen the change with the teams playing each other twice to make it a real fair competition. So we'll wait and see how it all pans out at the end, but yeah, not a big fan.
It's a bit skewed, isn't it, when you look at the points gathered so far? Australia almost perhaps double what New Zealand have got, so it gives you a little bit of a false impression.
Well, it does, and if you were to put all the teams in the one ladder, you would find that 3 Australian teams would be on the top. The Mystics would be 4th, and then a couple of Australian teams with the Magic then. So I don't think it's a fair indication of the teams and where they stand. And I think yes, and being an Australian, I know, but I think there's some top quality Australian teams, and it's going to be unlucky for them to miss out. And I think if they were in the one ladder, one competition, that there could have been 4 Australian teams in the finals, but I think that's the reason why they've come up with this concept, is to avoid that happening.
And one positive though, the draws, we're enjoying that because there have been so many. I don't recall so many draws when it was a cutthroat competition.
Yeah, no, I just can't believe the draws, and they've been really exciting. A team's been up by 8 goals and all of a sudden, they've drawn in the game, and you can just see the heartache on the girls at the end of the game. And especially the team that's come from behind, they would want to keep going and carry on that momentum, but you just never know with that extra time. And I really like the draws. I think that's there's a lot of sports where if it's a draw, that's it. You don't play on. So I agree with that one. Yeah.
All right, let's just run through briefly through the team's first impressions. We'll start with the Australian one, the West Coast Fever, because often pumped up and delivering this year.
Yeah, they are. Lots of hype around them over the last few years. They've lost their experienced coach in Norma Plummer. So Stacey Rosman, who was captain of the Fever when the competition first started in 2008, is now coaching, doing a really good job, and maybe relates to the players a little bit better and a lot differently maybe to the more experienced coaches that have been out there. So I think they've just come in some exciting players out there. Finally they're clicking and it's working for them, and I think the combination of Bassett and Medhurst in the shooting circle has been a real bonus for them in these last few games.
Hard to back up when you're the current champions, as we know from this competition, but the Vixens look to be doing a pretty good job of it.
Yeah, they do, and they were really tested last weekend in their game, and they made some uncharacteristic changes. Bianca Chatfield, their captain, came off during the quarter because just wasn't playing at her best, and if that happens, it doesn't matter who you are. If you're not at your best, you need to come off. So a little bit unusual for the Vixens to make quite a few changes in their lineup, but it just shows that you can't rest on your laurels and you have to keep pushing, and it's good for the competition though.
And the Swifts, they're on the cusp in the 3rd place, and they seem to be about right. They're not quite as good as the other two, but they're perhaps better than the Firebirds and Thunderbirds. Yeah,
look, I thought the Swifts may have been a little bit better than where they are sitting at the moment. They have had 2 draws though, so they've got the 1 point out of those 2 draws. A little bit inconsistent there, and they have changed their mid-court round a fair bit as well. Got the stability in the defence and the shooting circle, just trying to find that right mid-court connection. And Kimberly Green probably hasn't been at her best so far this season. Had a head knock in the clash against the Fever on the weekend, so she is struggling a little bit from that game. So I expect to see the Swifts. They look pretty fit though. When I saw them play here in Invercargill, they look sharp, so I expect them at the business end to really push it on.
Yeah, that was at the start too. So the Firebirds, they look good enough for top 3, but everything has to go right for them. Yeah,
it does, and I just don't know if the Firebirds, they're just sort of there or thereabouts. They haven't got anything different. It's that same old getting the ball in, high ball into Romelda. So I just don't know if they've got that X factor, coming off that bench, maybe like some of the other Australian teams. But they'll be there or thereabouts. If it was a full ladder, they'd probably be in that top 4, but they could be the 3rd Australian team, but I think they'll fight it out with the Thunderbirds. I
think the Thunderbirds, though, they're a step below again. They've really struggled in every game. They've got some points, but they've had to scramble for every one of them.
Yeah, they have, and I think it's just trying to find those connections again. Their mid-court, new combination, Maddie Proud coming into the mid-court and Lee Waddington coming back from a knee injury, and probably not at her best, and so I think they've maybe pushed her a little bit too early and hoping that she's going to be at her best straight away. So they're trying to find find their right mid-court connection. Again, the defensive end is settled, as are their shooters. Carla Borrego, now an Australian citizen, qualifies to be a non-import. So an interesting how that all worked at the beginning of the season.
Right, yeah.
And Ebony Beckford-Chambers, I think, has really added a bit more to their defensive end at goalkeeper. So I really like what I'm seeing from her at the moment.
All right, to the New Zealand table, headed by the Mystics. Now, they've the last couple of seasons been well, not hard to follow. They've been following them at the bottom, but they're putting some good netball together today. Yeah,
look, they're getting there. I think they have their moments, and but you know, they obviously are the best New Zealand team at the moment, and that's proven with their shooting statistics. Both Latu and Tutai are shooting over 80%, where the other New Zealand shooters are at 70% or lower. So, you know, they've got that strength, and they do have a silver fern attack line, so you would expect, and I'm sure all New Zealand fans would hope, that combination continues to improve come World Cup time in August. So yeah, they're doing a good job trying to find that defensive combination, but they've got that flexibility. Tony Fitzpatrick, who was with the Steel a few years ago, came into the mix in their first in a game for her first game last week. So lots of variety that they can use, and some good strike power on that coaching team. Deborah Fuller and former Magic coach, so you know, Nolene Taurua. So it's a pretty good coaching structure they've got going there. They
do, and of course the former team she looked after, Magic, always there or thereabouts with New Zealand, to use your expression, and look, they will contest that top spot.
Yeah, look, I think the Magic are doing really well. Unlucky again, Courtney Tyree, an Achilles injury that's really weakened their mid-court, but Jamie Lee Price has come in at centre. Her background is defence, so she's come in to play in an ANZ Championship in a position that you've never really played before. I think she's doing a really good job. They're a young team, and they're probably surprising themselves of where they're at. Manua at goalkeeper has been outstanding, I think, with Liana de Bruin. Interesting, she's just made the Australian under-21 squad. Actually not sure how that works, even though she's Australian born.
There's very flexible rules about eligibility in this game.
Well, there is, so I'm actually not sure what's happening there, that she can be eligible for the Australian under-21s but not an import for the Magic. So that's an interesting concept that's going on there. But yeah, I think they're doing well. They're shooting. They're struggling a little bit. If Harton goes down, it's shown that you know, they really miss her on the court. So Pasika's doing quite well, but just needs that consistency and accuracy to really lift her game.
All right, Southern Steel don't have shooting problems, not a goal shoot at least. They seem to be hitting the numbers, and they had a couple of close calls against good Australian teams, just a handful of points between them.
Yeah, they have, and they've probably surprised a few people, considering, you know, the experienced players that they've lost, and you know, the young mid-court that they've got happening there. So Tapai Selby-Ricketts stepped into goal attack quite nicely. You know, I really enjoyed working with her when I was involved in the Steel, and would have liked to have seen her given more opportunities back then. Still a long way to go with her positioning and things like that, but she's not afraid to go to the post, and that's what you need in this competition. You need two shooters. Janelle Fowler-Reid, well, you know, she's pretty unstoppable, really. You know, get the ball to her, but you know, is that the style of netball that we want to see down the track?
You can't be too reliant on it, can you?
No, you can't, because, you know, touch wood, nothing happens, but if something does, you know, they're in a lot of trouble. So, but then you might need to mix it up a little bit and have a moving circle with two quick shooters in that circle, and you know, it does throw the defence, and not sure, because they're used to practicing on tall defenders, get some fast nippy players in there and they're actually not sure what to do. So defensive ends doing really well. Karaka and Storm Purvis, you know, stepped up, and it was their time and their opportunity now to prove that. And Gina Crampton's doing really well at wing attack. You know, she's certainly been one that's been eyed as a, you know, potential silver fern down the track, and has shown some really good skills and speed in at wing attack. So yeah, Wendy Free's doing a good job leading this young, inexperienced team.
And to the enigma that is the Pulse, because on paper great team, but unfortunately their shooting circle, I mean, it clearly was the difference between them and the Mystics the other day. They're all over them, but they just couldn't nail their shots, and you just have to say, I think it's time for Irene to maybe look at retirement. Yeah,
look, you know, she's still great to have in your team, and you always want Irene in your team because you just never know what she can produce. But I think the three shooters in there are struggling and trying to find that combination. Jodie and Irene Van Dyke have played years ago and have been involved with the Ferns. So it's just trying to find that combination. Do they need to look at changing their mid-court? You know, is the delivery of the ball getting into the shooters where it needs to be? And, you know, there's only been changes through that shooting circle. do they need to look at making changes elsewhere that might spark, you know, the fire that they actually need to lift them up high on that ladder and produce some better netball than they're actually showing.
Shooting is okay for tactics. The rest of the game, though, is just a little bit behind the pace.
Yeah, it is. And, you know, I've seen the Tactics play a few games live, and, yeah, it's just disappointing. You know, they have been shooting quite well. They're there or thereabouts, really quick, but I think their turnovers are quite high. And that comes, I think, from Sue Hawkins. She really likes that flashy, fast-paced netball. I've been coached by Sue years ago, and you know, I think she really enjoys seeing that, and I can see that in the Tactics play. But then you have to think about, you know, what you've got to do is, you know, do you keep that up or do you actually rein it back in? So, yeah, they're just maybe missing one key player in that mid-court, I think, just to really stamp their authority. They're quite a short team as well in that mid-court, so that does make it a little bit tricky. But, you know, defensively, Demelza McLeod is really, you know, starting to make a difference, finding her feet again. And Jess Moulds, who's come back from an Achilles injury, is starting to really show what she's capable of. So, get those connections, defence to middies, and yeah, they could surprise a few teams.
All right, Nelly, thanks very much. You've got 1 second to tell me the winner from this far out.
Oh, goodness.
Pick a name. Pick a team.
Fever?
I think Vixens. Thank you very much for joining us. We'll catch up with you later in the season. That's South Today tonight. See you tomorrow.